Fox News alert, U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder just wrapping up a speech at the Department of Justice on government transparency and openness. We will have the tape here in America Live in 1 minute, but first, Holder saying, quote, "By accepting our individual responsibilities, I believe we can fulfill our duties to the American people in bold, effective, and historic ways. And I know we can create an even more transparent and even more accountable United States government." That comes just days after it was revealed that Holder failed to disclose briefs he filed on behalf of terror suspects when he was being confirmed as our Attorney General. And now there is a firestorm on Capitol Hill. The DOJ says this was an inadvertent oversight. Top Republicans call it, quote, extremely serious, and say they plan to question the Attorney General about it on Capitol Hill. Bret Baier is anchor of Special Report. He joins me live now from Washington. Bret, okay, so these are briefs that Eric Holder wrote. They're called Friend of the Court briefs or amicus briefs that he wrote, and he didn't submit them to the Judiciary Committee when he was being confirmed. Why?
Well, as you mentioned, the Department of Justice says it was an oversight. However, top Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee, including Senator Jeff Sessions from Alabama, Senator John Kyle from Arizona, have a real problem with this because if you're familiar with the confirmation process at all, when you're a nominee, you're given a questionnaire with very specific details that you are asked to give all of the necessary documentation to back up the nomination. One of those questions has to deal very specifically with any briefs you may have written, submitted to the Supreme Court. A list, it wants you to submit all of the briefs in detail. Well, at first it was one brief that was left out that the Department of Justice acknowledged. Then it was several. Then it was 6. And these are briefs that have to do with national security measures. So you mentioned Senator Sessions said this is extremely serious, and they continue, the Republicans on that committee, to want to question the Attorney General on why this was left out in a very important nomination and confirmation process for Attorney General.
I mean, the briefs were submitted, at least 2 of them were, in the Jose Padilla case, which... and then later his attorney decided he needed to be called Jose Padilla. In any event, they were submitted in that case, which was a big case. And I guess that, Bret, is what is leading some of these Republicans to question the Attorney General's explanation now that it was inadvertent, because the thinking is, how could you not know that you submitted an amicus brief in connection with a case that big? Right.
I mean, it was kind of a big case to leave out of the submission of documents. I will say that the Department of Justice points out that the Padilla case came up in questioning during the nomination hearing, and the now Attorney General was answering questions about that during the hearing. However, why the documentation wasn't submitted in the first place is a bit of a question that Republicans have a real problem with. And, you know, you contrast that with the open government announcement that the Attorney General made today. You know, there are fair questions about whether it has been open from the start.
And so our viewers know, Padilla, one of the questions in Padilla, which went up to the U.S. Supreme Court, was, can an American citizen be held as an enemy combatant down at Gitmo? Is that legal? Can you dub an American an enemy combatant? And Eric Holder argued, yes, you can, as did many others in connection with that case. And, you know, is that something, I mean, is it much ado about nothing, potentially, Bret? Because if Eric Holder's views on that subject were fleshed out in the confirmation hearings, could it potentially not matter what he wrote in the brief if what he wrote in the briefs mirror what he testified to in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee?
Yeah, privately, that's what the Department of Justice is saying, is that essentially what was in those briefs is what he has talked about openly to the committee and other places about his feelings on these matters. The Republicans on the committee say, hey, listen, that's fine, but the process says you've got to submit what exactly you did and how you submitted that when you were writing this amicus brief, this friend of the court brief. And we need this documentation from the beginning. And you didn't have it, and why?
And now you'll have people poring over the briefs to see whether there is some areas that
hidden
that didn't cross over.
Nugget in there.
Yeah, in
that's
any
right.
event. All right, Bret Baier, thank you so much for the update. We appreciate it, buddy. You can check him out tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern.